Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Sanjay Roy, Associate Professor, Department of Social Work, University of Delhi. Today we are going to talk about the very relevant topic, planning and community engagement. After completing this module, you will be able to understand the concept of planning, the history of planning, the importance of planning, objective of planning, process of planning, principles of planning and other issues and central planning. Introduction. Planning is the process of making decisions about the direction and intensity of extension education effort of extension service to bring about social, economical and technological changes. Planning as a management discipline emerged in USA and other developed countries around 1950s. By 1965, planning came in vogue and large undertakings began to practice it. Since 1965, it has gained much recognition and wide acceptance all around. Even in India, planning entered the academic arena and the same to be taught in the Indian universities and management institutions. To justify the time and resources expended in planning, distinct benefits must accrue to the planner, and the major benefits are as Stoner has mentioned. He said that planning forces the managers to think ahead. It leads to development of performance standards, which enable more effective management control plans, forces management to articulate clear objectives. Planning enables an organization to be better prepared for sudden development. To justify the time and resources expended in planning, distinct benefits must accrue to the planner, and the major benefits like planning forces the managers to think ahead. It leads to development of performance standard, which enables more effective management control plans, forces management to articulate clear objectives. It also enables an organization to be better prepared for sudden development. Now, if we see the concept of planning, different people has given different concept. The concept of planning involves a systematic analysis of a problem, predicting solutions to that problem, and then outlining steps to be taken for the achievement of the objectives. There are many lessons for these changes in management practices, all of which emphasize the need for planning. These changes are evident not only in the product and services, but also in management skills and techniques employed. The transition from traditional methods of management to modern ones brought about conditions of uncertainty too. These changes are irregular and unpredictable, as they are sometimes placing the executives in difficult situations while making decisions and initiating action. Under management principles and theories in 2000, some definitions have provided, like planning is anticipatory decision making. It's given by Russell Ellock. Newman has said that planning is deciding in advance what is to be done, that is a plan, projected course of action. Allen said plan is trap laid to capture the future. Hamilton Church, he said planning is in essence the exercise of foresight. Coons O'Donnell said planning is an intellectual process, the conscious determination of course of action, the basing of decisions on purpose, facts and considered estimates. It's said by Coons O'Donnell. Planning is basically anticipating. Earl Strong talk about. It's a very simple definition. Let's talk about the history very briefly of planning in India. First of all, the idea of planned economy was crystallized in 1930s when our national leaders came under the influence of socialist philosophy. India's 5-year plans were very much impressed by the rapid strides achieved by the USSR through 5-year plans. Actually, in 1934, Sir M. Visvesvaraya, who had published a book titled Planned Economy in India, in which he presented a constructive draft of the development of India in next 10 years. His core idea was to lay out a plan to shift labor from agriculture to industry and develop national income in 10 years. This was the first concrete scholarly work towards planning in India. The economic perspective of India's freedom movement was formulated during the 30s between the 1931 Karachi session of Indian National Congress, 1936 Faizpur session of Indian National Congress. Under this plan, there are few developed plans we have. Number 1, National Planning Committee, Bombay Plan, People's Plan, Gandhian Plan, Sarvodaya Plan, Planning and Development Department, Planning Advisory Board, and then Planning Commission. These are the sequence wise the plan has started in India. Now, National Planning Committee, the first attempt to develop a national plan for India came up in 1938. In that year, Congress President Subhash Chandra Bose had set up a National Planning Committee with Jawaharlal Nehru as its president. However, reports of the committee could not be prepared, and only for the first time in 1948-49 some papers came out. So, that was the initiation of planning in India. Bombay Plan. In 1944, 8 industrialists of Mumbai, they worked together and they prepared a brief memorandum outlining a plan of economic development for India, which was called Bombay Plan. This plan envisages doubling the per capita income in 15 years and tripling the national income during this period. Nehru did not officially accept the plan, yet many of the ideas of the plan were inculcated in other plans which came later. Then we come People's Plan. People's Plan was basically drafted by M.N. Roy. This plan was for 10 years period and gave greatest priority to agriculture. Nationalization of all agriculture and production was the main feature of this plan. This plan was based on Marxist socialism and drafted by M.N. Roy on behalf of the Indian Federation of Lahore. Then comes Gandhian Plan. This plan was drafted by Sriman Narayan, the principal of Wardha Commercial College. It emphasized the economic decentralization with primacy to rural development by developing the cottage industries. Then comes Sarvodaya Plan. Sarvodaya Plan, basically it was drafted by Jai Prakash Narayan in 1950s. This plan itself was inspired by Gandhian Plan and Sarvodaya idea of Vinoba Bhave. This plan emphasized on agriculture and small and cottage industries. It also suggested the freedom from foreign technology and stressed upon land reforms and decentralized participatory planning. Planning and Development Department. In August 1944, the British India government set up Planning and Development Department under the charge of Ardesher Dalal, who basically this concept, the Planning and Development Department developed, but this department was abolished in 1946. Planning Advisory Board. In October 1946, a Planning Advisory Board was set up by interim government to review the plans and future projects and make recommendation on those plans. Then we come Planning Commission. Immediately after independence in 1947, the Economic Program Committee, which we call EPC, was formed by All India Congress Committee, which with Nehru as its chairman. The committee was to make a plan to balance private and public partnership and urban and rural economies. In 1948, this committee recommended forming of a planning commission. In March 1950s, in pursuance of declared objectives of the government to promote a rapid rise in the standard of living of the people by efficient exploitation of the resources of the country, increasing production and offering opportunities to all for employment in the service of the community. The Planning Commission was set up by the resolution of the Government of India as an advisory and specialized institution. Planning Commission was an extra constitutional body charged with the responsibility of making assessment of all resources of the country, augmenting deficient resources, formulating plans for the most effective and balanced utilization of resources, and determining priorities. Jawaharlal Nehru was the first chairman of Planning Commission at that time. Let us talk about the function of Indian Planning Commission, which was set up in 1950s. The main function was to make an assessment of the material, capital and human resources of the country, including technical personnel, and investigate the possibilities of augmenting those related resources which are found to be deficient in relation to the nation's requirement. Number 2, to formulate a plan for the most effective and balanced utilization of country's resources. Number 3, to define the stages on the basis of priority in which the plan should be carried out and propose the allocation of resources for the due completion of each stage. Number 4, to indicate the factors that tends to retarded economic development. Number 5, to determine the conditions with need to be established for the successful execution of the plan within the incumbent socio-political situation of the country. To determine the nature of the machinery required for securing the successful implementation of each stage of the plan in all its aspects. Number 7, to apprise from time to time the progress achieved in the execution of each stage of the plan, and also recommend the adjustments of policy and measures which are deemed important. Number 8, to make necessary recommendations from time to time regarding those things which are deemed necessary for facilitating the execution of these functions. National Development Council. Government of India could take the initiative to set up the Planning Commission only by virtue of provision in the Constitution, which made economic and social planning an interim in concurrent list. The resolution to set up a Planning Commission was actually based upon the assumption that the roots of center-state cooperation should be deeper. Later in 1952, the setting up of National Development Council, which is called NDC, was in fact a consequence of this provision only. Let us talk about importance of planning. Why importance is important in India? Different scholars has talked about this importance. Like Stoner, 1996, he talked about the importance of planning. He said, planning determines the future destination of an organization. Planning makes activities of employees meaningful. Planning economizes operations. Planning helps in reducing the risk of uncertainties. Planning leads to the discovery of new ideas and opportunities. Planning facilitates coordination. Planning facilitates efficient control. Planning provides direction. Planning acts as a response of the management to cope with changing environment. Let us talk about the objective of planning. Like Ray in 1991, he said the main objectives of planning is to influence people and their way of life. The planned programs are useful, as he said, to ensure careful consideration of what is to be done, to furnish a guide against which new proposals are to be judged, to present in written form a statement for the public use, to establish objectives with which progress can be measured and evaluated, to have the means of choosing the important from the incidental problems and the permanent from the temporary changes, the present mistaking the means for the end, and to develop both felt and unfelt needs, to give continuity during changes of personnel. He also talked about that to aid in the developing of leadership, to avoid waste of time and money and promote general efficiency, to coordinate the efforts of the different people working for rural development. Let us talk about also few things about the scope of planning. What are the scopes when we talk about in terms of plan? The main scope is it helps in discovering and planning the ways for action. Planning gives meaning and system to action. Planning prepares the basis for a course of future action. It facilitates decision making for the future. Planning singles out the most significant needs. Planning identifies the gaps between the present situation and the desired situation. Planning also assists in the formulation of objectives of the organization. It also promotes active involvement of the local leaders. Now, let us see how plan goes on. What are the basic process of planning? The main basic process of planning could be number 1, to identify needs of planning, why we require the plan. Number 2, to install infrastructural facilities and information system. Number 3, to take stock of existing plans. Number 4, to assess resources position of the organization, what are the resources we have in the organization. Number 5, to scan external environment, what are the external environment we have. Number 6, to identify affected areas of business. Number 7, to formulate planning process. Number 8, to determine future destination or objectives and define them clearly. Number 9, to develop alternative course of action through research, analysis and past experiences. Number 10, to evaluate course of action in terms of risk, cost, efficiency and resource position of the organization. And lastly, to formulate derivative sub plans known as operational plans and programs. Now, if you see the advantage of planning, you see there are significant advantages of the planning like competitive spirit. Planning keeps competitive spirit alive. It also sharpens the urge to go ahead of others in the same business, in making use of new techniques and methods of production, in setting high qualitative and quantitative standard for output, and in creating novelties. Systematic and methodical work. Planning also shows the right way of channeling energies towards the accomplishment of the desired objectives. It minimizes the irrelevance and waste. Planning also can help for controlling unproductive work as a result of irrelevance and consequence waste. Better use of facilities. Planning makes better and more constructive use of the given facilities of an organization. It also provides overall picture of organization. For any organization, planning is the only better means of getting comprehensive view of operation. It also ensures coordination. Good planning will ensure coordination. If top level executives and fixing individual responsibilities, then we should have good planning. Now, if you see some features of effective or good plan, what should be basically the good plan? According to Gary Dessler, who said some points, what are the good plan? He said, the plan must be based on accurate forecast. The plan must be acceptable by all the employees. The plan must be a sound one. It should operate in an open system approach. There should be a planning organization and blueprint for planning. The planning should reflect the needs of customers' satisfaction. There should be a monitoring system, that is appraisal and review time to time. There should be revision of plan periodically based on the performances. The plan should fit the situation. The plan should be simple, stressing on the need-based approach to meet the current situation. Now let's talk about principle of planning. Everything when we do, we have certain principle and we have to follow those principles. Same thing in planning also, we have certain principle which we have to follow. Like number 1, principle of felt needs. What is that? A good program should be based on felt needs and in the interest of the people. The urgent needs should be given priority. Let's for example, community people do not have enough food to eat and government is planning for introducing education program for them. This will not be a good plan at all, because they need food, not education. So first priority should be food security for the community, and for that government need to plan accordingly. So that is called the felt needs, the priority of felt needs. Number 2 principle is principle of joint participation. In the planning, joint participation of both the private and public and beneficiaries should be ensured. Number 3, principle of flexibility. The program should be flexible enough to allow any part of the plan to be changed when something important happens that makes changes necessary to get better result. Number 4, principle of simplicity. A good program is one which provides direction for a large number of people to move some distance. It will be only possible only plan is very simple. Number 6, principle of coordination. For a successful plan, coordination from all sides is must. Then comes principle of satisfaction. Any program, if you see, is good only when the people are satisfied with it and it fulfills their needs and interest in totality. Then comes principle of practicability. What is practicability? Plan should be realistic. We have to see the reality, and it should be based on practical understanding, that is attainable. The plan should be attainable with the economic, social and mental capabilities of the people. Then comes principle of comprehensibility. Program should be very comprehensive and balanced, as it should reach to all sections of the society. It should be comprehensive enough to include all the age, groups, creeds, castes, races and all labels and community, blocks, state, national and international problems. Only then it will be called comprehensive plan. Then it comes principle of achievability. Focus should be on problems that are most important. Therefore, objectives should be fixed to few problems that are most important as felt by people. Then comes principle of evaluation. Every program is formulated based on objective and it should be stated clearly and in such a way that they are amendable for evaluation, because evaluation helps to measure the progress of the program, its weaknesses and achievements. Then comes principle of situation analysis, which is very important. It says a sound program should be based on the analysis of facts of the situation. Then comes principle of definite plan of work. A good program has a definite plan of work because it gives a careful plan of action. Then comes principle of continuous process. Principle of continuous process means the plan cannot be static, it should be a continuous process. No program completes suddenly, because implementation of the program may change the situation, their economic, social and other factors will change. So, it should be continuous. And then it comes principle of teaching process. The program planning itself is an excellent teaching device. People learn to analyze their needs and try to decide the relative importance to their problems. Thus, it is one of the natural settings for the learning process. So, after principle, let us talk about steps of planning. What are the steps? How to go ahead? The steps in planning, like Ray in 1998, he has given 8-fold model planning, such as number 1, collection of facts. You have to collect the records, facts pertaining to data available in your organization. Then analysis of the situation. After collecting data, it will be analyzed in an unbiased way, keeping in view the feelings expressed by the client system, because it will provide proper understanding and perspective. The next step comes identification of problems. A correct analysis and interpretation of the data shall help one in correctly identifying the problem. There may be lots of problems, but we have to identify only the urgent problems which may be solved within available resources of the organization and within a limited time. Then next step comes determination of objectives and goals. This is one of the main steps, because the objectives should be formulated based on the significance needs identified. It should be direct and stated in clear terms. Next comes developing plan of work and calendar of operation. Here the plan of work should be in written form and shall indicate who shall do what job, that is what the change agent system and client system shall do, which institutions, organizations, service departments shall be involved, what will be the financial requirement and how it shall be met, etc. The calendar of protection and operation should be prepared on the basis of the plan of work and shall specify when a particular work shall be done, preferably mentioning date and time. And then follow through plan of work and calendar of operation, and you have to follow according to your calendar what you have developed. Then come evaluation of progress. Here what you do, evaluation is the process of determining the extent to which we have been able to attain our objectives. All programs must have an inbuilt system of evaluation to know how well the work is done, and it should be continuous process. Evaluation also may be formal and informal depending on the importance of the programs, and also on the availability of trained manpower, funds, facilities and time of your organization. And then comes reconsideration and revision of the program. On the basis of the result of evaluation, the program should be considered and revised if required at all. This reconsideration should be done not only with the participants, but also with the scientists, administrators in extension organization and local bodies. Reconsideration shall help in making necessary correction and modification in the program. In reconsideration, emphasis should be on the removal of technical defects, if any, and how to obtain more cooperation and involvement of the participant and various organizations. Now, let us talk about models of planning. Different social scientists, administrators have given different models. Reddy in 1987, he had given a model of planning. He said there are 9 steps in planning process: collection, analysis and evaluation of all available and pertinent facts, determination of objectives based on needs, definition of problems or obstacles faced in achieving objectives, finding solutions to problems, selecting problems with due consideration to priorities, preparing plan of activities, carrying out the plan, continuous checking of evaluation of results, and review progress towards achievement of objectives. Singh has identified 7 steps of plan in 1987. He said, study of the situation, identification of the problems, fixing objectives, finalizing plan of work, executive plan, evaluation and reconsideration of plan. Let us go for summary. If you see the above discussion, we can say that as we have In preceding section we say about the concept, objectives, process, steps, principles of planning in India. Special focus of economic planning. It is essential module to overall success of any institution or organization or any company. A strong, efficient and incorrupt administration is essential and must for successful planning. But the underdeveloped country like India, it lacks most. All levels of planning must do their part, incorporate situation analysis, alternative goals and plans accordingly. Only then greater success is possible. Therefore, there is a need of constant surveillance of plans to get the best result and for better development in the future. Thank you.